courses are set up, precisely, but buoys drift. It could just have been a longer line she took around one of the buoys, but just noticeable to me. Not that 49 minutes isn't a respectable swim time. It's a brilliant swim time, but for this particular course, I think it might be a smidgen slower than I would have expected otherwise.
Yeah, I would have expected a little bit faster than that, but she still gets out. She's going to have a huge lead. She's almost to the women's change tent, and nobody else has even gotten out of the water yet, so most people would die for a swim like that. Lauren Brandon's having a great day out there so far. Again, she makes sure that wetsuit is as close to being able to take off as possible. She's got that cap off, so there really is nothing that she needs to do besides when she gets into that change tent. She's going to drop that wetsuit. She's going to probably put a helmet on as she's running. She might have a glove or arm warmer or something like that she'll put on. There, we got a volunteer handing her the blue bike bag, and our cameraman sprinting as fast as he can to keep up with Lauren Brandon.
Battery pack chasing.
Yeah, we got to do our
cheat run form. This is the judgment zone.
Our crew works hard. If you guys thought it was easy being a cameraman, it's these guys are proving that it's not. They're doing a great job of it. So Lauren Brandon is jumping into that backside of that change tent as we see Meredith Kessler hitting terra firma coming out of Tempe Town Lake right now, getting helped up from volunteers. One thing that I love, every time we see, we're talking about these athletes moving through different sections of the course, we're always saying, and this volunteer helped him here, this volunteer handed him the bag, volunteer helped him out of the water. So a crucial part of making our races happen. And that's what you see. I mean, Lauren basically just ran straight through there. That's how efficient she was. All she had in that bag was a helmet, and all she had to do when she got to the chair, she didn't sit down, she had someone help her probably take her wetsuit off. She stepped out of the wetsuit, grabbed her helmet, and ran straight out. So being as efficient as possible, making sure that now all she has to do is grab that bike and get going.
And again, we look at we're getting a lot of Facebook comments like, what the heck is this run into T1? And it is a long run. Meredith Kessler trails by nearly 4 minutes. It's 3 minutes and 46 seconds as her deficit out of the swim. So that just goes to show you how far Lauren had to run. I mean, that's a good half mile almost of running. Maybe not quite, because she did run into the change tent, but it's a good run, and that's just another challenge of the course. There are some other significant courses around the world with some crazy transitions, and it all adds to the fun and excitement and adventure of racing an Ironman.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of what you have to do when you make an Ironman course fit a great town like Tempe, right? Like, we're able to swim in downtown Tempe, and then we need to find a location where we can have thousands upon thousands of bikes set up and running shoes and finish line and all that. So the fact that it only took 2.5 minutes of running to get from that location to the other is it's pretty good. Lauren Brandon kind of gets over some of the little tricky turns and getting over some cables and things that we need to logistically set up to make the race run smoothly. She gets through those pretty quickly and is starting to think about putting her shoes on and getting out and getting to work on this Benton bike course.
Getting to work indeed. She's got some toe covers on those bike shoes, get her toes nice and warm. That water temperature this morning was in the mid 60s, 64 degrees, I believe.
Yep.
So the feet are probably a little cold. The air temperature in the high 50s. So these athletes are going to be a little chilly as they start the bike, and those toe covers, while they probably detract slightly in aerodynamics, I think getting your feet warm and keeping your core temperature back up onto the bike obviously supersedes any aerodynamic deficit that a small little toe cover will add. So Lauren's got the toe covers on as we take a look at Meredith Kessler. She's got the wetsuit off right out of the swim and is running with it in her hands as she makes her way down the long run. Again, you get a look at how amazing this is. While it's a long run for the athletes from the swim exit into T1, look at all the spectators that are just encouraging them along the way, and that's a big boost for these athletes.
No, it's awesome, and it's something that keeps them motivated throughout the day, and certainly the important parts coming out of the swim here is pretty exciting. But yeah, we see two different techniques. Meredith Kessler, with a run this long, she's decided, you know what, it's worth it for me to stop and maybe lose a couple seconds getting the wetsuit off immediately out of the water.
Possibly utilizing the wetsuit strippers that are located right out of the swim. They help you get out of your wetsuit faster.
Yeah, quite possibly. But so, it's a give or take. You can run faster without a tight wetsuit on, but you got to carry it. So everybody's kind of got their own technique and what works best for them. But Meredith's got her wetsuit in her arms, and she can't really get rid of that wetsuit till she gets into the change tent. So she's gonna run now with that cap, the blue bag, and her wetsuit into transition. Clearly, we're not going to follow her into that women's change tent, but we'll see her get out probably even quicker than we saw Lauren Brandon get out of the swim. Right now on screen, always working hard, Sarah Crowley. She's probably running the same pace, if not a lot faster pace than she'd be running the marathon through this section transition, as we have an overhead shot here of Meredith Kessler is going to be coming out of that change tent. Lauren Brandon on the upper left-hand side of the screen, already a little over a mile into the bike course.
And I just wanted to take a minute to mention to our fans out there, any Ben Hoffman fans amongst you, that Ben will be calling in later in our broadcast to give his 2 cents. He is on the ground down on the course and will give us the sights and sounds down from the action from this pro women's race. Ben coming off.
It is about the Condit Tucson, Arizona. For a lot of his prep, trains with Heather Jackson, went to college with Lindsay Corbin. So nobody, we thought, better to give us some insight on this pro women's race here today than Ben. So we'll talk to him a little bit later. And knowing Ben, he'll give us he'll razz us along as well a little bit today. So awesome. But right now we see Meredith Kessler getting up on that bike and out and ready to go. And there's Sarah Crowley just to her bike. She there, but Sarah goes underneath our banner, and that red line there indicates where you're allowed to mount. And if you mount before that, you will get a penalty. So those athletes are making sure they get their bike all the way across that red mount line before they get on it. And Sarah Crowley is up and away.
Sarah Crowley is up and away. Her deficit as she got on that mountain line, just over 5 minutes behind Lauren Brandon and only about 35 seconds behind Meredith Kessler. So I think we're going to see Sarah Crowley get to work in an awful hurry here. And the question will be, how quickly she passes Meredith Kessler, and if Meredith is able to key off of her and use her to keep in touch with the front of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would bet at this point, the way that Sarah's been riding lately, that's a pretty tall order for Meredith Kessler, even though Meredith's a great cyclist. That's going to be pretty hard for her to do, especially early on with kind of that racing style of Sarah Crowley. I believe in a race like this, a women's only field, with the competitors that she has around her, she's going to want to get to the front of the race as quickly as possible, and then put it on the athletes chasing to try to keep up with her. So we'll see if Meredith has a response to that. But right now we still see other women, as Lauren Brandon is out on the bike course, other women still coming in out of the water. So right now it's going to be looking at the clock to our other favorites that we're talking about for these KONA spots and for the overall, with Heather Jackson, Lindsay Corbin, Maureen Hoof, and Melanie McQuaid. What is that gap going to be out of the water? I would have said the over-under is 8 to 10 minutes on them, and it looks like it's getting up closer to over 8 minutes already at this point.
And as we talk about this Ventum bike course, it's a relatively flat 3-loop course that heads out of Tempe and zigzags out to the Beeline Highway. There's a gradual climb. It is a false flat, so again, depending on the wind, it can be a little deceiving, can be slightly slower going out, but gradual uphill for 10 miles into the Sonoran Desert, and then they turn around just before Shea Boulevard, and athletes then return to Tempe Beach Park and then repeat that for a total of 3 times. So again, not a lot of real estate on this course, but certainly spectator friendly, and the athletes getting a ton of support out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend this race as for a first-time Ironman athlete to try to get into that. Maybe next year you want to get into that class of 2020. This is a great course to do that, because it breaks. You're able to break the race down into pretty short sections, right? You've got, you could break it to 3 laps on the bike, or you could break it into, 6 sections of the bike, out, back, out, back, out, back. So that gives you something mentally to look at instead of thinking, I need to ride 112 miles. You think, I'm just going to get to that first turnaround. I want to get to 18.8 miles, then I can turn around and come back. And, there's a gentle rise either direction, but in general, it's a pretty flat course. I would definitely consider it a flat course, but it has enough 6 sections of the bike, out, back, out, back, out, back. So that gives you something mentally to look at instead of thinking, I need to ride 112 miles. You think, I'm just going to get to that first turnaround. I I want to get to 18.8 miles, then I can turn around and come back. And there's a gentle rise either direction, but in general, it's a pretty flat course. I would definitely consider it a flat course, but it has enough